Farm Bill, it states that when the U.S. stockpiles grains, that they're forced to sell them on the global market for a fraction of the cost. What do you all think about this?
Well, we're losing money because we are selling all these crops that we're growing at a fraction of the price from what we should actually be selling them for.
It's true that the United States is producing more grains than we actually need, but by doing this, we are enhancing our food security.
But still, the amount we're spending on the farm subsidy compared to what we're selling the crops for, it's still really uneven, and it doesn't make sense to spend all this money for food that we're just going to give away for pretty much a fraction of the cost.
Actually, we don't spend as much as you might think. The U.S. government spends less than 1% of their budget on agriculture. It's a minimal amount of money in the grand scheme of things for the government to promote American agriculture.
Even though the grains that are being produced with today's prices in mind, they don't take into consideration what prices will be like in the future.
Without this subsidy, we would not be able to have as much homegrown foods. So we would have to rely on imports, which would make us susceptible to the prices of others.
Well, if we lose the subsidy, I don't really think that we wouldn't have enough money to grow food for ourselves.
That is true that if we lose the subsidy, that we won't be able to produce as much food, but we could end up losing more money by selling crops overseas at a fraction of the price.
Well, it is also stated that food is to be grown in the United States, and at least 75% of it is supposed to be transported on American ships.
Food aid is an important thing for America. It allows us to improve our relationships with other countries.
Well, relationships with other countries is an important thing. But is it so important that we spend so much of our money growing food that we're going to give for a fraction of the cost? And that's also not counting the shipping charges and other taxes that we have to pay when sending this food overseas.
If Americans wanted to reduce the cost, they would ship these crops on non-American ships. Also, if another country had wanted our food so badly, they should come here and get it.
But doing this also helps out the farmers over here. By using American ships, we'll be also helping out our economy.
But we won't be helping out their economy, or our economy that much either, because we're spending so much of our money sending food overseas and paying all the taxes and stuff and for shipping costs. And then the farmers over there can't compete with our prices, so they can't afford to grow sell their own food.
If we make the other countries come over here and get it as well, and we could ship some food over ourselves, this could create competition between our American ships and their ships. In turn, this would strengthen their shipping industry. And I've also read that African countries are our biggest areas of donation. Yet these countries feel we are only hurting their economies, not helping them.
We are hurting them, because by giving them free food or cheaper food, the farmers over there can't compete with our prices because their technology isn't as advanced as ours. And the only way they can advance their technology is if they actually grow their own food and learn from like how we did.
We may be hurting their economy a little bit, but after all, we are giving them free food. This will help reduce the risk of famine and death that could occur in these countries.
But by giving them this free food, we're also stopping these countries from producing their own food so that they're always dependent on us. And I personally don't think that's the best thing to have a country always dependent on us.
Yes, we may be hurting other countries, such as Africa, but if they didn't want our food so bad, they could boycott our food and fix up their own agricultural system.
They could do that, or we could just give them less food, or we could just honestly just give them a little bit of our food, not so much that we're spending so much money on just giving away food for other countries that are able to produce their own food.
If we give them less, it will not improve their situation because the agricultural systems there lack the financial resources necessary to fix them.
Well, then the ideal thing to do would be to not sell the food out for a cheaper cost so that the farmers over there can compete with our prices. This would benefit both parties because we would not lose much money since we were selling it at a higher price, and it would help the farmers over there to be more competitive with our prices.
When all figures are in, farm subsidy payments count for less than 1% of the federal budget. Is a 1% cut really worth the loss of our food security?
Well, I personally don't think that we should eliminate the farm subsidies completely, but I think we should reduce how much we're actually spending on it. Since a lot of what we're spending on the farm subsidies is just to grow an excess amount of food that we're just going to give away for free or at a fraction of the cost.
The farm subsidies allows us to have a feeling of food security. Because of the subsidy, we know that we'll be able to make enough food to feed our entire country.
I personally don't believe that a 1% cut is worth the loss of food security, but I believe the bill could use a little reform. The idea of the bill is great. I just believe there could be some tweaks done so that it could benefit everyone.
I highly doubt that by reducing the amount we have on the farm subsidy that we still wouldn't have a sense of food security. America has a lot of money in itself and is able to produce enough food for itself. if we just reduce the farm subsidy, we can still produce the same amount of food and some excess to give to other countries.
This all comes down to the question of, is food a basic human right for people? I believe that it is, and because of the farm subsidy, then it's necessary. And yes, I understand the subsidy may need some reform, but I still believe that we should not reduce the total amount that's being given.
Well, I personally think we should reduce our farm subsidies, and just so we have enough to produce food for ourselves and maybe a little over to give away to other countries. This way we still have our sense of food security, but we're also helping out other countries.
There are other ways we could deal with these issues as well besides just reducing the farm subsidies. One idea would be to export food in non-American ships to reduce costs to us. We could also sell the food to them at a standard price so that it keeps their own agricultural markets competitive. This way both sides can benefit.
Thank you. Interesting perspective.